From the Mosque to the Cross, the story of Yusuf Karimi. What if everything you were taught to believe about God turned out to be only half the picture? What if the very religion you were willing to die for began to crack open? Not because someone attacked it, but because truth quietly knocked on the door of your heart and refused to leave. That is the story I am about to tell you. It is a story about a boy who became a man, and a man who lost everything, and in losing everything, found the only thing that truly mattered. Stay with me. I promise you, by the end of this, your heart will never be the same. Drop a comment and tell me, where in the world are you watching or reading from? Whether you are in Lagos, London, Lahore, or Los Angeles, let us connect as one family and pray for one another. My name is Yusuf Karimi. I was born in the winter of 1989, in a small apartment in Birmingham, England, to parents who had carried their homeland, Pakistan, not just in their suitcases, but in their bones, their prayers, and their silence. I was the eldest son, and in our home, that meant everything. From the time I could form words with my mouth, those words were Arabic. My mother, a gentle woman with eyes that could silence a storm, sat beside me every evening and walked me through the Quran line by line. She told me these words were the very breath of God, and that my job as her son, growing up in a land of unbelievers, was to carry them like a torch. She told me I was not just her child. I was a representative. When people looked at me, they would form a picture of Islam in their minds, and I had to make sure that picture was beautiful. My father was a taller kind of silence, a man of few words, but enormous expectation. He told me that a man's greatest honor is his faith and his family, and that both must never be betrayed. Not for comfort, not for friendship, not for anything this temporary world could offer. By 12 years old, I had memorized large portions of the Quran, recited my 5 daily prayers without fail, and studied the traditions of the Prophet deeply. Our community was tight, warm, and woven together by shared faith and shared honor. What one family did reflected on everyone, and in that world a boy like me had only 3 acceptable futures: doctor, lawyer, or disappointment. My father made very clear which ones were acceptable, so I studied. I excelled. I was pointed toward medicine like an arrow already released, but then I met Daniel. Daniel Osei was a Ghanaian British boy in my secondary school class, quiet, thoughtful, and wearing a small cross around his neck that I found faintly irritating. We became lab partners in year 9, and against all expectation, we became friends. I want to be honest, I did not befriend Daniel because I liked him. I befriended him because I thought I could lead him to Islam. He was my mission, not my friend. At least that is how it started. But Daniel was not what I expected. When I challenged him, and I challenged him often, he did not crumble or walk away. He sat with my questions. Sometimes he told me he did not know the answer, but would find out. He came back the following week with books, notes, and careful responses. He showed me things I had never considered. He pointed me to historical records and ancient documents, and then he told me, quietly and without pride, that he believed God was a loving father who had entered the world because he could not bear to be separated from the people he created. I told him this was impossible. I cited the Quranic chapter I had memorized as a child, the one that says plainly, God is not a father and has no son. Daniel listened, and then he asked me one question I was not prepared for. He asked, if I truly believed truth mattered, would I be willing to investigate everything, even if it led somewhere uncomfortable? I said yes, because I was certain I would win. I was wrong. The cracking began slowly. I started reading the original Hadith records myself, not to learn, but to find ammunition. I remember sitting in my father's study one evening, a thick volume open on my lap, the lamp casting yellow light across the pages. What I read made me go cold. The Muhammad I found in those original records was not the Muhammad I had been raised to love. The traditions revealed to me things my teachers had never mentioned, commands and statements that ran through the records, not sparingly, but like a thread woven throughout. I called my father into the room and showed him what I was reading. I asked him, genuinely confused, to explain it. This towering, certain man looked at the page, then looked at me, and could not find words. He told me some things were not meant to be understood by young men. He told me not to question, but I had already started, and a mind asking honest questions does not easily stop. Late at night, alone in my room, I began praying with no script. I told God, whoever he truly was, that I wanted truth. Not my parents' religion, not Daniel's family's religion, something real. I told him that both the Quran and the Christian scriptures promised. He answers those who call sincerely. I was calling. I was asking him to show me. I did not know what I was opening. Months passed. Dreams came, too clear and specific to dismiss. A sense of presence when I read passages from the Bible Daniel had quietly given me, a growing ache that the God I had been raised to worship, though powerful, felt distant. A God of law and scales. And something inside me was crying out for a God who was near. Then one evening in my first year of medical school, sitting alone in my dormitory, something broke open in my chest. Daniel revealed to me the full picture of what Christians believe, not just that Jesus died, but why. He showed me that God did not simply overlook sin or balance it on a scale. He showed me that God himself stepped into human skin, walked into the pain and mess of this world, and absorbed the full punishment that every wrong thing every person had ever done truly deserved. He told me this was not weakness. He told me this was the most astonishing act of love in the history of the universe. He showed me that God did it not to collect religious followers, but because he wanted us, not our performance, not our religious records, just us, as we are. I wept. I did not plan to. Something in the deepest room of my soul said, yes, this is him. This is the God I have been searching for. I gave my life to Christ that night. Alone. Quietly. Was no one watching but God. Now I must tell you what happened next, and I will not soften it. To soften it would be to steal something important from this story. You need to feel this. I told my parents on a Sunday afternoon. I sat across from them at the kitchen table, the same table where my mother had taught me the Quran, where we had shared 1,000 meals, and I told them I had become a Christian. The silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It was the silence of a world ending. My mother's face did not get angry first. It crumpled. She looked at me the way you look at someone you love, who has just been struck by a car. Shock. Disbelief. Then a grief so complete it had no sound. She told me she did not know the person sitting in front of her. She told me she had carried me, prayed over me before I was born, dedicated me to God before I could speak. Then she placed her hand over her heart, her whole body shaking, and told me I was not making a personal choice. I was killing her. I have heard many hard things in my life. Nothing has come close to that. My father stood up from the table. He did not shout, and somehow that made it worse. He stood perfectly still, looked at me with eyes that had gone somewhere cold and far away, and told me in a voice barely above a whisper that I was no longer his son. He told me I had brought the greatest shame a man could bring upon a family. He told me that in the eyes of our community, our relatives, our faith, I was dead. He told me to leave his house. I left. I walked out of that front door with nothing but the clothes on my back and the small Bible I had kept hidden under my mattress. I stood on the pavement outside the house where I had grown up, in the cold November air, and I cried in a way I did not know a person could cry. Not just tears. Something from a much deeper place. The grief of losing, in one single afternoon, everyone who had ever shaped you. Word spread through the community within days. People who had known me my entire life, uncles, aunties, family friends, crossed the street rather than greet me. A cousin I had grown up with like a brother sent me a message calling me cursed and cutting off all contact. A family elder visited my father and told him that any continued connection with me would bring spiritual contamination on the entire household. He urged my father to cut me off completely and permanently. My father listened. My mother, torn between love and loyalty, stopped answering my calls. For months I would dial her number and listen to it ring out into silence. Sometimes I left voicemails just so she could hear that I was still alive. She did not call back. Not once. Not for a very long time. I was 22 years old, sleeping on a borrowed mattress in a friend's spare room, with no family, no community, and no framework for who I was anymore. Every single thing I had used to define myself had been taken in one afternoon. There were nights when the loneliness felt physical, something pressing on my chest that would not lift. There were mornings when I woke up peaceful for a few seconds before remembering, and then the remembering hit like losing everything all over again, fresh and complete. But through every one of those nights, through every unanswered call and every cold morning, there was a presence. Not a voice I could record. Something more interior than that. A steadiness, a sense of being known and held by hands I could not see, but had learned, slowly, to trust. I finished medical school. I began speaking at universities and churches, telling this story. My mother eventually began taking my calls again. My father has not yet, but I pray for him every morning without fail. And I believe with everything in me that the same God who found a searching young man in a dormitory room in Birmingham can find a proud and hurting father, wherever he is, and bring him home too. To every Christian reading this, when did you last truly pray with real weight for someone paying a price for faith that most of us will never be asked to pay? There are people right now sleeping on floors, eating little, carrying grief with no name, simply because they said yes to Jesus. Please do not forget them. The persecuted church is not a headline. It is a person. It is someone's child. It is someone like Yusuf. And if something in your heart is stirring as you read this, if you have been searching, if you are tired, if you feel like there is a door somewhere slightly open with light coming through, this prayer is for you. Say it and mean it. God, I do not know everything about you, but I want to. I believe you love me, not because I have been good enough, but because you are good enough. I believe Jesus took the punishment for everything I have done wrong. I am done trying to earn my way to you. I accept what you have already done. Come into my life. Make me new. I am yours. If you prayed that you are not alone, tell someone. Find a community of believers. Leave a comment below. We are family now. Thank you for reading to the very end. If this story moved you, share it. Someone in your life needs to hear it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you are reading or watching from. Let us build a community of prayer and love that crosses every border and every broken place. God bless you. See you in the next one. This is a work of fiction inspired by real testimonies. The character of Yusuf Karimi is fictional. The spiritual journey described reflects the real experiences of many former Muslims around the world who have come to faith in Christ.